Hi, everybody. It's really a pleasure to be speaking to you tonight. I'm Dr. Annie Fenn. I want to thank Cedarhurst for inviting me to speak with you and for being part of the Caregivers Wellness community. And I just want to talk to you really briefly about Brain Health Kitchen, about what it means to eat a brain healthy diet. And I thought we would just go over one of the landmark findings in the last several years about the impact that you can have on your long-term brain health by eating different foods. So when I launched Brain Health Kitchen in 2015, most of the data that was coming out of the scientific community was drawn on the Mediterranean diet studies. So you probably are familiar with the Mediterranean diet pyramid. It was described in the 1960s. It's about how people in the countries that surround the Mediterranean Sea eat. And it's also associated with not only a reduced risk of cardiovascular disease like heart attack and stroke, but also a reduced risk of Alzheimer's and other types of dementias. So in 2015, there was a group of researchers at Rush University in Chicago. And Dr. Martha Claire Morris was the lead researcher. And she looked at the Mediterranean diet studies, and she had been studying epidemiology and nutrition in the brain for 20 years. And she asked the question, what if you take the Mediterranean diet and you make it even more brain healthy? Like, we know that if you follow a Mediterranean diet very closely, your risk of Alzheimer's later in life is 40% less. And that's amazing. 40% risk reduction is amazing. But she wanted to see if she could push it and get it to be even less than that by incorporating some neuroprotective foods. She had been studying neuroprotective foods for a long time. Neuroprotective foods are foods that we know have an action in the brain that slows down the aging process. Foods like berries or leafy greens or vegetables or olive oil. So she took the Mediterranean diet pyramid and she made it more specific. She did the spinoff for the MIND diet, the MIND diet study. And what she and her colleagues did was very elegant. They took the pyramid and broke it down into 10 brain healthy food groups and 5 food groups to limit or avoid. And they took a group of about 850 people living in the greater Chicago area, age range from 55 to 95. No one in this study had dementia going in. They all had healthy brains going in. They were extensively evaluated, cognitive tested, all of those things. So they were just followed over the course of 4.5 years to see how their brains aged based on whether or not they were adhering to this diet. And the first thing they did was take berries and make it its own food group. Now, berries are, everyone knows that berries are good for you, right? There's been a lot of marketing around this, but it's really true. There's a lot of data that shows that eating berries on a regular basis can protect you from getting Alzheimer's and may protect you from getting any kind of memory problems. And so what they did at Rush was they said, berries are kind of lumped into all the vegetables and produce in the Mediterranean diet pyramid. We're going to take it out and make it its own food group, and recommend that people get at least 2 servings a week, 2 half-cup servings a week. And that's what they did. So berries is the first brain healthy food group in the MIND diet study. The second one is leafy greens, green leafy vegetables, which were also lumped into that vegetable category in the Mediterranean diet pyramid. The Rush researchers made this its own brain healthy food group with the recommendation that you eat 1 cup raw or half-cup cooked of leafy greens most days, like 6 out of 7 days. And this was based on lots of research on leafy greens that showed that people that eat leafy greens on a regular basis, their brains shrink less over time than people that don't eat leafy greens. Now, like, a shrinking brain is actually something that's normal. Everyone's brain gets a little bit smaller as it gets older. It's a normal part of aging. But maintaining the volume of your brain is a really important way to maintain your brain health and your memories. So it's all about not shrinking too quickly or too rapidly. And what we're seeing in these studies, like the leafy green studies, showed that people who ate a salad every day, their brains looked 11 years younger on MRI compared to someone who only ate a salad maybe once or twice a month. So that's a powerful nutrition intervention. It's one of the most powerful ones that we have studied. So berries, leafy greens, And then vegetables, of course. We all know vegetables are good for you, especially cruciferous vegetables, because they provide the plant nutrient sulforaphane, which fights oxidative stress in the brain. Mushrooms are also a very important food group, which I recommend highly, at least 2 servings a week. But these are the core plant foods in the Mind Diet study. Next, we have legumes and beans. And beans and legumes are a really important food group for healthy aging populations all over the world. It's one of the most common foods that people who reach 100 eat. If you've ever read about the centenarians who live in blue zones, they could be from Costa Rica or Italy or Greece or California, and legumes is the one thing that they consistently eat several times a week. So the recommendations for beans or legumes is to have 3 servings, a half cup cooked, every week. So we have berries, we have leafy greens, we have vegetables, we have legumes, and then the other plant group is whole grains. So this might be a little surprising because a few years ago there was a lot of, articles. There was a book written about the fact that the theory that whole grains are bad for you, and it's not true. Whole grains are actually very good for you, and it's a crucial food group to include. And to not eliminate, unless of course you are gluten sensitive or have an allergy or have celiac disease. So whole grains, the recommendation is 3 half cup servings a day. And a half cup serving is like a small bowl of oatmeal plus a piece of whole grain toast, and then maybe like a half cup scoop of cooked quinoa or farro, or even whole grain pasta or brown rice. It's easy to get 3 small servings of whole grains in a day. So we have berries, we have leafy greens, we have vegetables, we have legumes, and we also have nuts. Nuts is a very important food group because we know from studies on people in terms of heart disease that eating a handful of nuts 3 or 4 times a week could really reduce your risk of heart attack and stroke. And it's true in the brain as well. It can help keep the blood vessels really healthy. And that's because it provides a really important type of fat, monounsaturated fat to the brain, as well as fiber, protein. It's a satiating snack. It provides a lot of flavonoids, which are plant nutrients that your body needs, your brain needs. So nuts are also a really important food group. So far, the top 5 brain healthy food groups are all plant-based. You don't need to be 100% plant-based to have a brain healthy diet. You don't need to be vegan. You don't need to be whole food plant-based 100%. There's really no studies that show that you have to be 100% plant-based. But all of the brain healthy dietary patterns that have been studied, the Mediterranean diet, the Mind Diet, there are a few others, are predominantly plant-based, meaning this is the base of your pyramid. This is most of what you eat. And then the other food groups are fish and seafood, about 1 serving a week, very important food group to get DHA and EPA, which are crucial omega-3 fatty acids. Poultry, 2 or more servings a week. You don't have to eat chicken to have a brain healthy diet. The Mind Diet researchers thought it was important to include it because it provides choline and lutein, which you can also get from eggs, and a few other nutrients. Extra virgin olive oil is one of the brain healthy food groups, and that is because it is, it's steeped in the Mediterranean tradition. That's what they cook all of their food with. And it also is special. Extra virgin olive oil is completely different than other oils. It has the exact right profile of fats, which is mostly monounsaturated, very little saturated fats, and some polyunsaturated. So you want a cooking oil that you will use sparingly. You're not drinking copious amounts of this. That's primarily monounsaturated fats and very low unsaturated fat, as opposed to something like coconut oil, which is like 100% saturated fat with really nothing else, which is really not good for your brain health at all. So extra virgin olive oil is what's recommended. It also provides polyphenols, which fight off oxidative stress. And then the last brain healthy food group, did I get them all? Yeah, I think I got them all. The last brain healthy food group, okay, spoiler, it's not really a food group anymore. It's been dropped since 2015, but the 10th brain healthy food group in the Mind Diet was red wine. Small amount, up to 5 ounces a day, which is about a half a glass of wine. And that was based on the Mediterranean tradition of having red wine with meals. Red wine also has resveratrol, which is an antioxidant. There's a lot of other antioxidants in red wine. Maybe it's also a stress-reducing drink that goes along with the Mediterranean lifestyle. You know, the Mediterranean diet is really not just a diet, it's really a lifestyle of how you approach food and have a relaxed attitude about food, and things like that. So it used to be part of the Mind Diet study, but now there's another study coming out soon, I hope. It's been delayed because of the pandemic, but it's the Mind Diet trial, which is a randomized controlled trial. One arm of the participants will be on the Mind Diet strictly. The other one will be on something similar, but not the Mind Diet. And they're going to compare the two arms, which is a more powerful statistical type of study than the original Mind Diet study was. So that in that study that's coming out hopefully next year, they decided to drop alcohol as one of the brain healthy food groups. And the reason is that most people in the US don't drink alcohol like they do in the Mediterranean countries. People are drinking a lot more than 5 ounces a day, honestly. And also, we also have very big studies that just came out last summer looking at even small amounts of alcohol that we used to think were okay, are actually detrimental to brain health. So after 4.5 years, the Mind Diet researchers, looked at all their data, and they were shocked. They were actually really surprised at how well the people that adhered to the Mind Diet did. The people that adhered most closely to the Mind Diet, they had 53% less Alzheimer's after 4.5 years. 53% less, which is remarkable. It's absolutely remarkable. As you know, we don't have a drug that's really, treats Alzheimer's or cures it. We don't have many interventions, just lifestyle ones that are being studied. And this was purely just looking at, changing up what you eat. And one of the cool things about the Mind Diet study is that even the people that didn't follow it very closely, maybe they only followed it half the time, because diets can be hard, and maybe they're coming from a place where there's a lot of change involved to eat this many plant foods. They still had a risk reduction of 27%. So almost a third risk reduction just by following the Mind Diet sometimes. Now, one more thing I want to tell you before I have to go. A really important part of the Mind Diet is they also have 5 food groups that you are recommended to avoid or limit. And these are the food groups that are not good for your brain. These are the ones that should only be eaten in very small quantities, and just really hardly ever. You can probably guess what they are, and it's part of it's. So the Mind Diet's not just like what you eat; it's kind of what you don't eat too. It makes sense. You know that ultra-processed food and processed foods are bad, and we have a lot of studies coming out now showing that they're particularly bad for the brain and associated with dementia. So in these 5 food groups, 3 of them are processed foods. One is fast food. Fast food, of course, is bad. Fast and fried food. So avoiding any kind of conventional American fast food or most fried foods that you would get in a restaurant is something that is recommended that you limit no more than once a week. I would say, if you want something fried, fry it yourself in olive oil at home. Okay, so that's the first one. The second one is pastries and sweets. And we're talking about, packaged, processed cakes, cupcakes, muffins, cake mix, pies. You know what I mean. It's possible to make a brain healthy treat, and I bake all the time. I make cookies, we eat cake, but I use brain healthy ingredients, and these processed ones just they have the wrong kind of fat, and they don't have any nutrients, a lot of empty calories. So there's that. And then there's, the 2 other things that are important to limit in the brain healthy diet are foods that are really high in saturated fat. So one of these is butter. The recommendation from the Mind Diet researchers is less than a tablespoon a day, and cheese is another one, 1 to 2 ounces per week. Now, 1 ounce of cheese is like 1 inch cube. It's not very much cheese. And they took a very hard line on saturated fat foods like butter, like cheese, like red meat, which is the next one I'll tell you about, in the Mind Diet, because the brain healthy diet is really less than 5% saturated fat. It's mostly monounsaturated fat, like you get from olive oil, like you get from fish, nuts, seeds, avocados, things like that. And then the last one is red meat. Red meat They recommend no more than 4 servings a week, and a serving is smaller than what the typical American serving is. It's 3 ounces after you cook it, which is about the size of a deck of cards. So limiting these, not so great for your brain food groups, optimizing the brain healthy food groups. That's pretty much what I do in the Brain Health Kitchen. That's how I create recipes. That's how I create menus for my classes and for my book and all the writing that I do. So that's a little introduction to the Mind Diet, brain healthy eating, sort of my approach to it. And I think that we are out of time for tonight, but I look forward to the next time I get to speak with you, and I'll be able to answer questions. I think it will be more interactive, and I really look forward to that. Thanks again for having me. You all have a good night.